So I kind of like this setup. I've got a table here and chair. I mean, this is my kid's schoolroom because we homeschool, so the map is weird and unavoidable at the moment. But yeah, this feels good. I could take the map down, but I don't want to rehang it. So one thing I'm going to be doing with this channel a lot is recommending things that you may not have heard of, because I've watched a lot of obscure things that aren't like artsy European film things. So most people will actually kind of enjoy them. So let me preface today's introduction by saying that I think that Richard Donner might be one of the most underrated directors of all time. He gets very few accolades, but he has a filmography that some directors might actually kill for. So just to give you a quick recap on that filmography, his very first movie was in 1976, and it was a small movie called The Omen. Now, for the uninitiated, The Omen is still to this day considered to be one of the greatest horror movies ever made. And it was his first movie. Then, for his second movie, he went in a completely different direction and was given the responsibility of making 1978's Superman the Motion Picture, which means that for just his second movie, he made not only the first superhero movie, but he created the roadmap for how to make a superhero movie, and to this day, it is still considered to be one of the greatest ever made for his second movie. He then made two movies that I don't really know much about, which is kind of sad. I should watch them because I do really love him as a director. Then after those two movies, in 1985, he actually released two movies in the same year, and one of them was The Goonies, which is one of the greatest kids movies ever made, and possibly the greatest kids adventure movie ever made. You'll notice that I have listed three movies in this man's filmography, and I have used the phrase greatest ever made three times. Then, 2 years after that, in 1987, he made Lethal Weapon, which is one of the greatest action movies ever made. So much so that it is actually considered to be one of the most important ones ever made because it changed the direction of the genre. Every movie after that for several years was living in Lethal Weapon's shadow. Then the year after that, he made Scrooged, which is one of the more underrated Christmas movies, and it's still a really good comedy, and also one of Danny Elfman's best soundtracks. The year after that, he made the first Lethal Weapon sequel, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. Then in 1992, he made Radio Flyer, which I consider to be a pretty good genre, and it introduced the world to this amazing child actor known as Elijah Wood. He had been in small parts before that, notably Back to the Future Part 2, a couple years before that, but this was his first lead role. Then in 1994, he made Maverick, which I can't say is one of the great westerns because it's missing a lot of the conventions of that genre in order to be accepted as like a legit western. It's more of a comedy slash romantic comedy thing with a little bit of action in it, but it's one of my favorite just fun movies. I will just about never say no to watching it if somebody suggests it. It is so good, and I don't know if Mel Gibson has ever been as charming as he is in that movie. Sadly, after that, his career was not really that noteworthy, but before that, he was a director that successfully made just about every genre of movie. He retired from directing in 2006, but then, what was it, 8 years after that, 2012? When Disney bought Lucasfilm and they announced that there was going to be a new Star Wars movie, there was a lot of speculation about who they were going to get to direct that. My completely serious suggestion to that, because, people were asking, because everybody values my opinion, was Richard Donner, an extremely competent director who has done just about everything, but also is kind of like a bridge between the old school and new school filmmakers. It seemed like a really good match to make a Star Wars movie that has that old style feel that we got from the original trilogy, but could also add something new to it. Now, onto the fact that his career kind of dropped off. Lethal Weapon was both the best and worst thing to happen to him, kind of like Star Wars with George Lucas. It made him an absolute legend and sealed him in the pantheon of important directors, but he made that one so well and it was so successful that it kind of pigeonholed him as the action guy, and that was all people really wanted him to make for the most part. He did great at it, but I feel like it limited him and his career from then on. That being said, I actually love all four of the Lethal Weapon movies. Supposedly there's a fifth one that is not going to be directed by Richard Donner because he died 2 years ago, and I'm really not okay with that. Point being, I love Richard Donner, and now back to that second movie in 1985. It's one that I love, but I know very few people that have actually seen it if I didn't show it to them first. It's called LadyHawke, and I think that people need to remember it or learn about it since it bombed at the box office and it feels like not many people have seen it. So, why do I think you should see it? Well, it's a really unique story, which has a lot going for it these days. It has very strong fairy tale elements to it, but it's not one that's been copied or redone at all, I don't think. Maybe in European cinema, because I'm admittedly really not familiar with that. Or Russian. It does feel like it could be a Russian folktale. I don't normally care for Matthew Broderick's acting. He's in this, by the way, but I think that this might be his best role. And I am counting Ferris Bueller. I think that he's better in this. The thing about Broderick is, how do I put this nicely? He doesn't seem like he would be good at things. Now, because of that, he's really good at playing a character that's just been thrown into an overwhelming situation. And that is what this character is. The movie also stars Michelle Pfeiffer in one of her earliest roles, and Rutger Hauer, and a very young Alfred Molina even makes an appearance. I love Alfred Molina. So the movie opens in one of those wretched medieval prisons that used to be inside of every fantasy movie ever made. There's people screaming, there's madmen everywhere, everything's lit by torchlight, and everyone is muddy and sweaty for some reason. You've seen those movies. So it's hanging day today, and one guard is really intent on hanging a specific prisoner by the name of Philippe the Mouse. Broderick. When he gets to the cell, though, Philippe is gone, and his cellmate tells the guard that he escaped through a grate in the floor. The guard doesn't believe him because it looks way too small for any human being to fit in. But that is, in fact, how Philippe escaped, which establishes him early on as just being a very sneaky little punk. That's really what the whole beginning is him escaping from the prison, and then the city that the prison's in, and then his kind of being on the run in the countryside. Also in this time period, we learn that he talks to God a lot, which is both funny and endearing, but it also tells us that he's been alone for a long time. The prison that he escaped from is supposed to be inescapable, so the guards are understandably annoyed at him, and so now there's an all-out manhunt for him. They do find him, and the scene where they find him is really good in a way that shows how modern action scenes are often lacking. He almost gets away, but he's not a fighter, so everything that he does is just scrambling and getting away really quick and dodging. He kicks one guy because he has an opportunity to do so, and that's it. Because he's a scrawny little guy, and no one would believe that he's beating up all these guards to get away. Character-driven action scenes. I'd like for them to come back. That's all I'm saying. So, like I said, they do catch him, and they're about to execute him on the spot when suddenly Navarre, a black-suited swordsman with a pet hawk played by Rutger Hauer, stops them with a crossbow. He has a pretty good intro, and I love the touch that he's the former captain of the guard, so he only kills 2 of his former men. One because he had to prevent his own death, and the other one was just a complete accident, and he feels really bad about it. All of the other men that he fights, he incapacitates them and doesn't even draw his sword on them because he still feels a loyalty to them. Philippe tries to escape while Navarre is fighting the guards, but then Navarre is done fighting and he essentially kidnaps Philippe. Then Navarre tells him how to repay him for saving his life. Philippe escaped an inescapable fortress, which means he can break back in. And Navarre wants to break in because he desperately wants to kill the bishop, who's basically the political leader of the entire area, because he really wants revenge for something. While Philippe is grateful, he'd rather not try to break back in, so he tries to escape a couple of times. The first time, he's almost killed by a wolf, so he decides to stick around. He also meets Isabeau. He's instantly charmed by her because she's Michelle Pfeiffer. And 2 songs referenced her in 2014. I don't want to give too much away right now, but the rest of the story is Philippe getting closer to Isabeau and Navarre and helping their relationship. It's a really fun movie with some great twists and turns and a handful of really great lines and a really satisfying ending. I will admit it is not perfect, and I would actually welcome a remake because of its 2 biggest flaws. The first, unfortunately, is the character of Navarre. Most of the movie is about him and his passionate love affair with Isabeau, and caring about them and their relationship is a big factor in you caring about the movie. and you don't really like him that much. There's no one person to blame about it either. The script does some things with his character. Hauer makes some less than endearing choices, and Donner let them both happen. Him being destined for Isabeau is kind of a big deal, but he's controlling, jealous, easily angered, and makes one comment that's kind of icky, and not in a modern times way. I don't think it was a good line for 1985 either. I don't want to tell you what it is because it'll spoil a movie that I really want people to see, but ew, you will know it when you hear it. But you're able to get over it because, as shocking as it may seem, Broderick carries this movie. He is perfect as Philippe, and you want what he wants. Also, you just want Isabeau to be happy. The second flaw. Oh my gosh. It is a big flaw. Inside of my recent composer video, I said the only outlier is Richard Donner, and he's an anomaly inside of the whole point I'm trying to make, because anyone who's seen LadyHawke knows he does not give a crap about film scores. And I said that because, you guys, LadyHawke may have the worst soundtrack I have ever heard. And that includes straight-to-video movies from the 80s and 90s. Heck, I've seen the Flash Gordon movie. It is so bad that it's honestly baffling and hilarious. It is so bad that I would watch and probably enjoy a video of music aficionados watching that movie and giving Mystery Science Theater type commentary on the soundtrack. If I were to tell you that there's a medieval epic fantasy with a soundtrack that sounds like the intro to Van Halen's Dreams, I don't think that you would believe me. But this is that movie. Should you see it? Absolutely. But be warned. This is the end of my general discussion, and now I'm going to get into more spoilery territory. If you haven't seen this one, I hope that you'll give it a chance before right about now. This is your last warning. I'm gonna do it. Here we go. So, Philippe's first night with Navarre, they stay in a creepy farmer's barn. Philippe gathers firewood and considers running away, but then he hears a noise and runs back to the barn. Also, this really isn't going to have any clips because copyrights and stuff. Then the farmer is behind him and is about to kill Philippe with an axe when suddenly a big black wolf comes out of nowhere, runs past Philippe, and attacks and kills the farmer. Philippe runs into the barn to find Navarre and can't, so he grabs his crossbow instead. He's about to shoot and kill the wolf when Isabeau appears behind him and stops him from firing. Then she tries to go outside. He tries to stop her, but she says that it's going to be fine. Then he sees her walking with the wolf. During this whole sequence, Broderick actually engages in a lot of physicality that you really don't expect from him. Also that you really don't get from modern Hollywood at all anymore. Actors aren't allowed to just do stuff. Long, medium shots just really aren't a thing anymore, it feels like. It's all quick cuts to close-up shots where the actor really can't move or they'll get out of frame. If there is a longer shot, it's usually a tracking shot that's just been thoroughly planned and there is no room for mistakes or the actors changing things or doing character things. Sorry, this is a point of contention for me. The next day, he's traveling with Navarre and he tells him about the stunning woman that appeared the night before. Navarre asks him to describe her, so he does, and his description makes him really happy. Might be the first time you see him smile. No, there's one other time that you see him smile. The next night, Isabeau is back, and Navarre's gone again. Philippe has been tied to a tree to keep him from running away. Isabeau unties him, and he promptly runs off. The next day, Philippe is captured by the guards again, but Navarre comes to his rescue again. There's a fight, someone shoots an arrow into the air, and it hits Navarre's hawk in the wing. And Navarre is enraged about that. After the fight is done, he cradles the hawk like a baby and gives her to Philippe and tells him that there's a monk inside of a dilapidated old castle nearby and to take the hawk to him. Philippe says the hawk is done for, and that really ticks Navarre off, and he tells him that he will do as he says. So Philippe does. Rutger Hauer is a scary dude. Philippe reaches the castle before sunset and tells the monk, whose name is Imperius, that he has a hawk that has been shot. The monk congratulates Philippe on his marksmanship and says that he can bring it inside and they'll eat it together, but then he becomes very concerned when he finds out that it's Navarre's hawk. Imperius takes the hawk into a room and locks Philippe out of it, but after he goes to get some stuff, Philippe becomes very curious and unlocks the door and sneaks in. And there he sees Isabeau lying on the ground with an arrow in her shoulder. She asks if Navarre is okay, Philippe tells her that he is, and then the monk shoos him out again and performs surgery on her. Once she's stable, Imperius starts to explain things to Philippe. Isabeau was the most beautiful woman anywhere in the world, and she and Navarre fell madly in love. However, the bishop that Navarre wants to kill also fell in love with her. He pursued her relentlessly and obsessively, and it was like a stalker, honestly. But she couldn't stand him, and so she completely ignored him and sent back all of his letters unopened and all that kind of stuff. And because he was such a big political leader, she and Navarre kept their love a secret because there would be retribution if the bishop were to ever find out. However, the priest that they both confessed to, Imperius, got drunk around the bishop one night and told him about their secret marriage. This threw the bishop into a rage, and he called out to hell to curse them. And hell answered. During the day, Isabeau is a hawk, but at sunset, she transforms back into a human. However, also at sunset, Navarre turns into the black wolf that's been following them around. Then they switch back again at sunrise. They only can see each other for like half a second between the two events, always together, eternally apart. Early the next day, the bishop's guards attack the castle. During a scuffle, Isabeau falls off of a tower, but it's right at sunrise, so she turns into a hawk and flies away instead of falling to her death. Now that Philippe knows the full story, he's much more willing to help, and he decides to stick with the couple. Imperius tells Navarre that he can't kill the bishop because in order to break the curse, they both have to appear in front of him as human beings at the same time. While that might be true, it doesn't really seem possible. But Imperius says that it is because in a couple of days, there's going to be a day without a night and a night without a day. Whatever that means. Okay, so this is really the point where you start to not like Navarre that much. Up to this point, he's been fine, if, just a little grumpy, but now you understand why he's kind of grumpy. The first real incident of this comes when he's told all this, and his response is, yeah, sure, okay, whatever, I'm going to kill him anyway. I mean, you could at least try. What's 2 more days in the grand scheme of things? Also, Philippe starts trying to give Isabeau something more akin to a normal life because she's kind of been living in the woods for however long this curse has been going out. So he tries taking her to a tavern and bringing her wine to drink and dancing with her and that kind of stuff, which is more than she's been able to do in a long time. And you can tell she really appreciates the kindness and the companionship and being treated like a person. However, when Navarre finds out, he flies off the handle inside of a very possessive way. Now, I can understand why they chose to do it this way. There's 2 reasons in the story that would make him have this kind of reaction. The first is the bishop is still completely obsessed with her and looking for her, and so he's rightfully concerned that if she's ever recognized anywhere, then the bishop might find her and, lock her away in a tower and do unspeakable things. Now, the thing that's lacking there is that we don't really feel like Isabeau is in danger from the bishop, because the only mention of it that we've gotten really is the monk saying that the bishop is obsessed with Isabeau. He does tell this one furrier played by Alfred Molina to keep an eye out for her, but that's really all that you get. We don't get a sense of people are looking for her and that kind of thing throughout the entire movie. In fact, we're pretty sure that Philippe is in more danger of being found than she is, just from interactions with the city guards. Now, the second thing is that Philippe is spending time with the woman that Navarre loves, which is literally something that he can't do. And it's kind of understandable that kind of frustration would show itself inside of a jealous anger. However, and you may disagree with me, but I don't feel like that's really conveyed by Hauer's performance or the script. Now, I've been avoiding showing clips because of copyright things so far, but I need to show you this one because I need you to hear him say it. This is the regrettable line, and it's about here that it happens, adding to the dislike of Navarre.
Did you know that hawks and wolves mate for life? Yeah. The bishop didn't even leave us that. Not even that.
I'm sorry, dude. Are you saying that you're upset that you can't bang other wolves? Because that feels like a weird thing to want. Anyway, moving far, far away from that, Philippe is now fully on board with the whole curse breaking plan. But Navarre is so full of anger that he won't listen to even the chance of it. However, he does manage to convince Isabeau, and she agrees to kind of a mean plan. Isabeau and Navarre have been leaving each other before they transform to avoid even briefly seeing each other because it's just too painful. So the plan is to trap Navarre as a wolf so that he stays next to Isabeau until sunrise. Then, inside of that brief transition, he sees her again. And I will say, I did criticize him before, but Rutger Hauer plays this moment so well. There is so much pain in his eyes and expression. It's really good. However, instead of convincing him to break the curse, it makes him even angrier, and so now he's more intent on killing the bishop. But he does agree to do it on the day that Imperius says the curse can be broken. It happens to be on the same day as some ceremony where all the monks in the area come before the bishop. I have no idea what it is because I'm Protestant. So Navarre's plan is to very publicly kill the bishop after Philippe breaks into the city and lets him in. Good plan and a very exciting scene. However, Navarre gets just, one more chance to be a complete douche. He tells Imperius that if he hears the bells sound, then that means that he was unsuccessful and the ceremony ended peacefully, and so he should kill Isabeau in her hawk form rather than forcing her to live without him. I mean, yes, admittedly, that is as a hawk for half of the rest of her life and as a nocturnal woman for the other half, but I mean, come on, let her make that decision. Jeez. So Philippe succeeds, lets him in, there's a fight, a window is broken, and a man inside the belfry falls and grabs the rope, and that makes the bell ring. Navarre is very upset because now Imperius is going to kill Isabeau because Navarre was stupid. However, Isabeau then shows up as a person because Imperius isn't stupid. Up in the sky, we see that there's a total solar eclipse. A day without a night, and a night without a day. I think it's a little cheap, but it's not horrible, and in the moment, you're fine with it. The curse is broken, and then the bishop tries to kill Navarre, but then he gets killed pretty epically. The lovers get to be together again, and then Philippe and Imperius leave the cathedral together as friends, showing that Philippe is no longer alone. I love this movie, and I think it's a really good movie, and it has the potential to be a great movie. I would be perfectly fine with a remake of this movie, just, altered a little bit to make Navarre a little bit more likable, maybe have him played by one of the many Chris's, and then, hire literally anyone else to do the soundtrack. You may think that I'm blowing this out of proportion, but I cannot lower your expectations enough about how bad this soundtrack is. Do both of those things, and you have a great movie just ready to go for you. I hope I convinced you to try it. I mean, come on, you really can't go wrong. You'll either enjoy a fun and unique movie, or you'll get a lot of laughter out of the absolute train wreck that is the soundtrack. You'll see me next time if you subscribe. Bye.